Hey, it's Nikki Thompson, and you're listening to Tea with Nikki. Embrace your sexual energy. And today I'm very excited to welcome Sara Elice to the podcast. She is our guest expert today, and I love doing these interviews. It's been a little while since I've done some interviews, and I've got a whole heap of guests scheduled to come on the podcast. So keep your eyes peeled, or your ears peeled, essentially. And Sara is a beautiful soul who I met on the coast, on the Sunshine Coast, through the sexual development kind of world here on the coast. We've got some incredible people doing some incredible things, and I'm so excited to have her on the podcast. So let's get into it. All right, I am so excited to welcome on to my next guest, Sara Elice, who I've only recently come across. Now, unlike most experts I've had on the podcast and people that I chat to, this is not just online relationship here. We've actually met in real life in a couple of really fun ways. So we're going to talk about that shortly in the episode. But welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nikki. Excited to be here.
Excellent. Now, this is going to be a fun episode, and we've just spoke about how we're not very good at kind of filtering or censoring ourselves. So this will be, just like every other episode. So Sara, I want you to introduce yourself, because I was also at your event the other night and you were introducing yourself, and there's so many different things that you do, but also there's so many different ways that you could kind of explain how you do it. And I think that you're going to do it way better than I could. So take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. Like I said the other night, I'm an intimacy coach, I'm an embodiment facilitator, I'm a sacred sexuality teacher, but sometimes I feel like none of those labels really explain what I do. It is hard. It's hard to put labels on things, right? I feel I feel like I do many things, but mostly I work with women and I support women to, I guess, come into their body, feel more, give them tools how to feel their emotions, and therefore be able to, explore their sexual energy, and that help them to, teach them how to explore their sexuality in many different ways. I hold events like Friday night, which are sex ed events. I hold temples, which are a celebration of pleasure and sort of a conscious play party. What else do I do? I hold intimacy workshops and run online programs and courses for women, really around how to come into their power, how to come into their pleasure, and really get out of this old model of codependent relationships and really come into their sovereignty.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I remember when I first came across you, I had actually booked into one of your events in Brisbane. And
That's
then
right.
I cannot even remember I think I was really sick or something. And I'm chugging down vitamin C and all these things. I really want to get to this event, and I couldn't make it. And so I came along to a temple, which was not what I was kind of thinking would be my first experience with you, of what you do. And so I've come along to the temple with Ollie as well. And it was such an experience. I remember walking away thinking, holy shit, that was amazing. And I'm so glad I didn't actually know what was going to happen, because I think I would have scared myself out of it. And I'm such an open person, but it's at the same time, it wasn't scary. I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but I would love you to tell us what happens at these temples, and why do people come along to them?
Yeah, good questions. So firstly, I've got a question for you. So it wasn't what you thought it would be?
No,
okay,
no, it wasn't.
Cool.
I think the hardest part, though, was that I actually knew someone there.
Okay.
Outside of this whole world. And seeing him there, and he sat down right next to me as well, and that was kind of a bit confronting.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of a little bit different. It wasn't what I expected, but it was so much better. It was like this, I feel like I reacted way better than I thought I would if I'd had known what it was going on. I think
Amazing.
yeah, just eased into it and just really relaxed into it. It was amazing. It was so much fun.
Awesome. Yeah, sometimes like the mystery is a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't like create too much space for like the fear to come up.
Yeah.
Especially if you're okay with the mystery.
Yeah. But I think a lot of women listening to this need to know all the details before they'll even venture into it.
Yeah.
And now that I know, like, I can't wait to come back.
Awesome. Yeah, we
I
have one
can't wait.
coming in this
I
Friday.
know, I can't
Yeah,
make this
yeah.
one. I was
Oh,
like, no. But that's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, a temple would not be what I would recommend like women to go straight into if they're unfamiliar with this, with this body of work, I guess, and they haven't explored much embodiment or much of their sexuality. But basically what a temple is, it's like a really safe container. Like it's called a temple because it's a very sacred space where people come together. So we were running temples just for women, and now we're running temples for men and women, so mixed gender. And essentially we start in ceremony. We really like drop into our body and connect into like our intention, like what we want to experience in the space, what we want to create in the space. And then like I basically facilitate different like breath work, embodiment practices, just practices to really connect to our own sexual energy, connect to the earth, and really just start to come into our body and come into the aliveness and come into the sensation and pleasure that we can experience in our body. And then from there we talk about boundaries and consent, which is really important in this space and just really important anyway. Like so many people, they don't know what a yes or a no feels like in their body. So yeah, we talk about that, and then we run some stuff for people to practice that. Yeah. So we either run exercises where like we ask a question and then they get to like drop in and feel how that feels in their body, or we go straight into like a conscious sort of like touch practice where people get to ask for what they desire, and they get to set boundaries, and they get to receive with all of their senses. Like we have food there, so you can have like food play, and then we have like oils and different smells, and we have like some instruments, so you may want someone to play like a sound bowl around your head and while feeding you grapes and like feathering you or something like that. I was telling someone about it that was here at my house the other day, and he was like, so it's sort of like a Roman party.
Yeah, I do remember that being a request from someone, was like that they wanted me to just feed them grapes, like feed them blueberries and things like that. And then it was such an experience. But what you said before, the consent practice and feeling, what does a yes feel like and what does a no feel like? I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I never have done that before, and I had never even thought of doing that before, and it was so important. I remember that so vividly, who I was sitting with and who I was doing that with, because we all did it with someone we've never met before, right?
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there and talking, and I think that's what opened me up to it, was like, oh, this is okay. This actually feels good. This is, I'm safe. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I didn't feel overwhelmed, but it was just that was such an incredible practice. I think that needs to be something that is kind of taught even at schools. Like,
sure,
how does this feel in our body? Just saying yes or no, because we're so taught to do as we're told. So
absolutely, there's so much like potency just in that. Like imagine if everyone was so deeply embodied and they knew what felt like a yes and no in their body, right? How different the world would be if we were listening to that and we're allowing that like inner intelligence or wisdom to actually guide us through life. Like and without getting lost in the head and being like, oh, I don't want to do this, or this feels weird, but I'm going to do it anyway because I don't want this person to judge me, or like it's like that people pleaser can often just take over. And then we create trauma for ourselves because we're not actually listening to what our body wants or needs, to
and
feel
I
safe.
remember just saying no, and there was no repercussions. It was fine. Like I could say no, and even just saying no, like that felt so good. In that, well, I can't remember what it was about, but it was just, oh, that felt good.
And I guess
that power.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do feel powerful. And I guess it's amazing to be in a space like this where essentially it's like, let's just kill all expectations. If someone says no to you, it doesn't mean anything about you. And like when we're like really talking about embodied consent, people really grasp that idea. When this person says no, it has nothing to do with me. It's just how safe they feel to receive in this moment, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean anything about me. So I don't need to feel rejected. Or sometimes maybe it will. Maybe I'll be like, oh shit, I find that person really attractive and I really wanted to massage them, and then they said no, and I'm going to take that personally. But that's an opportunity for like you to sit with that and be like, okay, cool, like I'm feeling a bit rejected or a bit weird in this space, and I get to really just sit with that and give that feeling expression and see how much I can continue to expand through that desire to contract and run away and hide in the corner.
Yeah Beautiful. So what are some of the other things that kind of happen in a temple experience?
So as I said, we tend to do like some conscious touch practices where we break up into small groups and we all get an opportunity to receive, and we get to set boundaries, like what parts of my body is out of bounds, or what sort of touch is out of bounds, or please don't feed me, or whatever. Like you get to set some really hard boundaries, like, breasts are definitely out of, like, that's a hard no. Yeah. And then you get to just continue to ask for what you desire, and that'll change. And sometimes we can do that in a way where we introduce a elemental touch practice where we're bringing in the different elements to our hands. So like earth is like a really grounding sort of like deep massage touch. And then like air is like really soft, feathery touch, and water's like more, like long strokes, so we can be like, cool, I want water now. Or like, hey, I really, I want everyone to stop touching me, and I really want just like a hug. Or right now I'm really wanting like someone to like get their claws into my back and like scratch me. So it's just like constantly like feeling into our body, like, oh, okay, this feels good, or that doesn't feel good. And we get to communicate that, and we get to ask for what we want. There's like so much potency in that too, because I think I can only really speak for women because I'm a woman, but I know that the feminine, which women tend to hold more of a feminine energy, is more naturally more submissive, and is more receptive. But I think a lot of women have a really hard time asking for what they want, or making like requests. So this is a really beautiful opportunity to move through any of that. That awkwardness or that uncomfortability around really like claiming our desires and asking them to be met.
Oh, yes. And I think walking away, I felt so opened up to this whole new experience of what, doing that, because essentially for me, the old me would have been so shit scared. I would have just turned around and walked straight out again. But seeing how I handled it, and that feeling like being in my body was just like a whole, I'd been doing so much work, and I felt really proud of myself to actually be able to do that, to be in that. I was uncomfortable. I was nervous. I was feeling all of those things, and yet still going forward, like still enjoying it. It wasn't, I don't know, I didn't feel like it was a bad thing, to actually have fun and enjoy this, and even watching how other people handled it, that was really beautiful. You don't see this, like you don't get to experience this kind of thing very often. So I was so appreciative going to that, and really learned more about myself, and being able to ask for more pleasure. And I think that's something, is that when we can't feel into our bodies, we don't even know what to ask for. We don't even know what it is that our body's desiring. And so we kind of just don't say anything at all, and focus more on the other person, because that's a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah,
and more
totally.
familiar, I guess.
And yeah, it is like there is going to be like so many old stories and like really embedded conditionings that that come up in that space, or beliefs like, oh, this is wrong, or yeah, so it can be really confronting. But what a beautiful opportunity to like then be able to question, like, well, why is this wrong? Is this actually my belief, or is this something that society tells me, or that my family's told me? Like, it doesn't feel wrong in my body, or maybe it does feel wrong, but only because I've been told my whole life that I shouldn't like this. Yeah, so it's like, it's a really beautiful opportunity to be able to like move through those old patterns and conditionings.
Yeah. Well, I would love to know, how did you get into doing all of this work? Like where did you kind of start, or where did this stem from?
Yeah. So I was pretty lucky. I grew up in a pretty alternative household. Both my parents were like, into Reiki and all sorts of weird things back then. And so, yeah, I was always like, I was opened up to this spiritual world, I guess, at a young age. But I guess as a teenager, that's something I was just like, Mom, I just want you to be normal. It's so embarrassing, Now I look back, or I look at my life, and I'm like, wow, I'm definitely way more out there than my mum. Can see how that happened. But yeah, when I was a teenager, I took some wrong paths. Well, not wrong, but I took some wild paths and ended up I ended up hanging out with the wrong people, and like taking drugs, and I got myself into some really shitty abusive situations. And and then when I sort of started coming out of that, I came out of like a really abusive relationship, and I was like really at my lowest low, and I was only 18 at this stage. And the only thing that I knew to fall back on was like my spiritual teachings, what I'd learned. So that's sort of when I started my own spiritual journey. I started reading heaps and heaps and heaps, and started writing and really tapping into like my inner wisdom as well. But I was still very much like into partying and drugs and stuff, through my early 20s. And I sort of used the spiritual stuff as like a way to sort of escape. I was like, it was very much into that spiritual bypass, where I was like, oh, connect with spirit and get out of my body. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like, it just wasn't in my body. It wasn't embodied wisdom. But then I come across Tantra when I was in my mid-20s. I'm in my early 30s now. So maybe like 6 years ago or something, I came across Tantra, and I went to my first talk. And I just had like, I was just crying the whole time, but I wasn't like, I didn't have a lot of emotion coming up. There was just like tears running down my face. And I was like, wow, this is weird. Like, what's this about? I was like, pay attention. And then I was like, okay, that was really cool. I want to explore that more. So I started doing work, like going to workshops, and I went to a women's 3-day wellness retreat down in Victoria, down on the peninsula. And that's when I discovered more Tantra. And I was like doing a lot of things like eye gazing that weekend and having like full energetic orgasms. And that's where I discovered Kundalini dance, which I then went on to study. And and then from there, that just led me into like, studying more Tantra. So that's sort of been my journey. And I've been running my business just for a couple of years now. And it's always evolving. Like, I only really started working one-on-one with women about a year ago. Before that, I was just like running group in-person, like Kundalini dance and Tantra workshops.
Yeah.
Wow,
what a journey. I love that. And I love that you have actually embodied the work that you're doing. It is part of who you are. And I can see that passion, especially on Friday night, just up on stage, and you could see how passionate you were, and you could see that kind of message just flowing through you. It wasn't like, okay, I've got these dot points I need to cover, it was, and I love seeing that. And I think that shows to people, like, when you can really reconnect with your body and reconnect with that creative energy, that feminine energy, that sexual energy. It's like, shit happens. I can just be talking and a whole episode will come out, or something will come out, and I won't even know where it came from. Like, and it's something that you can only experience, and I love seeing seeing you kind of come through this and doing these workshops. I think the in-person workshops are my favorite. Like actually seeing people in person is something about that energy. But you also work with women online in online programs. How do you find that different? Like, do you still think it's as effective?
Yeah, I do. Like, look, I guess after we've all gone through this year of, you know, so many restrictions that we've been forced to do a lot of stuff online rather than in person. Everyone is sort of like yearning for more of that, like in-person connection. And of course, with Tantra, especially when you're doing it like not just solo work and you're doing it with like a group or whatever, obviously it sort of needs to be more in person, right? But a lot of what I share in my online programs, it's fine to do online. Like I just saw a client this morning online, and we still had a really beautiful session. And even with the embodiment stuff, like on Zoom, I can just put music through the Zoom, and then I witnessed her in her full expression, and it was fine because it's more of like this solo practice. But I think once you start getting into like eye gazing and doing other things with other people, then obviously the online thing's a bit of a barrier for sure.
Yeah. I do love that. Like there's different ways, I guess, that we can always incorporate elements of that energy. Do you have like a practice or something that you do to help you get into that space? Or even even if it's like a daily thing that you do to help you get into that space?
Yeah, good question. So my daily practice is forever changing. I really like change. Like I'll try to stick to like one practice, and then after about a month, I'm like, nah, need to change it up. I'm bored. But essentially, I'm using the same tools, which are like the tantric tools are like sound, breath, movement, and touch. And that's how you move energy through your body. So for me, anytime that I'm like working or doing something and I'm like, nah, I'm feeling blocked. Yeah, I'm in my head, I'm doubting myself, stuff's coming up, and I'm like really not listening to my body, and I'm trying to push through, and I'm trying to work, and I'm trying to do things, and I'm like, nah, enough. Like the next half an hour, you're just going to put on some music, you're going to like dance, you're going to express, so sound out, breathing deeply into my body, allowing this energy, this fear, this contraction, whatever I'm feeling to move through my body, right? My body is like this channel, and often it's blocked, right? Like a hose. It's like we're kinking the hose because we're not willing to actually be present in our body and allow the energy to move and be expressed, right? Because we're like, oh, we've got a client, or we don't have time, or as mind sees all these limitations on why we can't feel, why we can't be in our full expression. But I really love breath work. Like there's quite a few different breath work practices that I do. I'll wake up in the morning and I'll do breath work in bed before I even get up. And then I love like going hiking. I love going for a run. I love keeping fit because just moving, just helps to move and shift energy. And I'm really lucky. I live like about a 5-minute drive from a forest where there's heaps of walks in there. And I actually go in there, and about 90% of the time I'm in that forest, I don't see another person. So I can just be like walking in, and I can just be like singing and making weird sounds and dancing if I want.
You sound like a fun walking buddy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm pretty fun. But yeah, I just say, like, for anyone listening that hasn't really done a lot of work or doesn't have a daily practice and is really keen to start doing a bit more embodiment, it's just like just coming in, like using those tools, like just put on a timer on your phone for 10 minutes and just like, and this is almost what I call self-pleasure. Yeah, sometimes self-pleasure doesn't need to end in an orgasm. You don't even need to be touching your genitals. Yeah, you can just start by being in meditation and just connecting with your breath and just breathing deeply into your body. Yeah, and then start to bring in some sound. So every time you exhale, like, make noise, express. And then bring in some touch, like start touching your body. What sensations does that create in your body? And then bring in some movement. Like, how does your body desire to move and flow? And really just like trying to stay out of the mind and just trying to be present in the breath, and anytime you find your mind getting carried away, just connecting to the breath, just breathing deeply into the body, and just really just organically allowing your body to move you rather than you need to move your body.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that was actually going to be my next question. Was like, so what do you think, how do you think people can start? With people that are just starting out, do you think adding in music helps or hinders?
I like music. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think trying to find music without like a lot of words, or music that you don't have like lots of memories or anything with, because I think sometimes for me, I love to sing. So if I've got music on that I listen to all the time or whatever, and I know all the words, I'll get distracted. I want to sing. Whereas like I have more of like the slow music that has like either no lyric or like very small amount of lyric. And it's just like, it just gives me a rhythm to, I guess, my body to move to.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that. I love that. And I just wanted to really acknowledge you, because my big vision is that we can talk about sex like we talk about the weather, that we can start to empower our children to really feel into their bodies as well, and that be a normal thing for parents to be teaching their children, for kids to know what it feels like, a yes feels like, what a no feels like. But also we need to start with, with mothers, like understanding and appreciating their body. And that's what I'm most passionate about. So I just want to acknowledge you, because the work you're doing, I love it. I love following everything you do. And so I just want to say thank you, because I really appreciate the events that you host, and I can see the impact that you're having on the coast. And I'm sure it's much further than that. Now, I know that everyone's going to want to follow you after listening to this episode. So where's the best place that they can find more information about you?
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge you as well for the work you're doing. I mean, I haven't explored so much like exactly what you're doing and what your courses and things entail, but even just having this resource of this podcast, not everyone has the courage to like follow their heart's true desire, and to move through those like fears and doubts that we have in doing stuff like hosting a podcast around sexuality and relationships. So like really honoring you, sister, and really see you and what you're doing. And
thank you.
You're welcome. So people can either find me on socials. So you can follow me on Instagram, which is sacred__embodiment. So Sacred Embodiment is my business. And then I have a joint business with my friend Olivia, and we're the Heart of Intimacy. So we haven't really used our Instagram too much, but you can follow the Heart of Intimacy on Instagram. You can also feel free to just add me on Facebook if you like. So my name is Sara Elice, so Sara, no Helice. And you can add me and just send me a message, and just so I know, because I get a lot of friend requests. So send me a message and say, hey, I listen to your podcast, I just wanted to connect. And that's where I host a lot of things. Like I'm actually about to host a 3-day course, which will be like under $30 for 3 days. And I think that's going to be around like the feminine expression. So working with different feminine archetypes and really exploring like the depths of, all of our expressions, or the expressions that are more taboo. Or you can just go to my website, which is www.sacredembodiment.com.au, and you can find more of my offerings and events on there as well.
Fantastic. Well, what I'll do is I'll put all the links in the show notes as well, so people can find you easily. And thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I think women are going to get a little bit more of an understanding of where to start, but also what's available when they want to kind of take it a little bit further. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a wonderful chat.
Thanks.